back here with Dustin after the three-game series with the Seattle Mariners. Dustin, why don't you give me some thoughts on what transpired the last 3 days?
It felt like a little bit of a redemption series, trying to get the playoff monkey off their back. I would say, some success on that front, and maybe a couple things that need addressing.
Well, I definitely feel that I think the redemption was probably on the tip of everyone's tongue going into this series. I would say that the Jays probably redeemed themselves a little bit, but I think there, as you said, there's a lot of work still to do, but it is a long season. So let's get into this. Uh, just to note, roster moves this series. This roster move actually didn't happen before the first game, but the Jays acquired catcher Tyler Heineman for the Pittsburgh Pirates for infielder Vinny Capra. This is a minor league swap, so no real effect on the big league team, but it did transpire earlier today. Lineup changes for game number one. Alejandro Kirk at catcher, Brandon Belt DH, Witt is at second, and our pitching matchup for Seattle, Luis Castillo, their ace, versus Alek Manoah. Manoah comes into this game 1-1 with a 5.13 ERA, 26.1 innings pitched, 21 strikeouts, and a 1.56 WHIP. Not a high scoring game on Friday in game number one, but top second, Seattle hits a solo home run to go up 1-0. And Alejandro Kirk in the next inning responds with a solo home run of his own, and it was a line drive right to left center field.
Yeah, Kirky had a good game today, and he seems to be coming back. I think he had a little bit of a slump coming out of a short spring training for him, and he seems to be getting hot at a good time here.
He definitely is. That inning ends 1-1. Moving on to the top of the third, Seattle with a RBI single, bringing the game to 2-1. And the Jays come back in the bottom of the third with a Vladdy walk, followed up by a Matt Chapman double, which Vladdy scores on, and that inning ends 2-2. The top of the sixth brings our first pitching change of this game with Tim Meza replacing Alek Manoah. Manoah's pitching line for this game 5.0 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Dustin, not a bad outing, but I don't know if it was a great one either.
Yeah, not his best outing tonight. He, as he does, he overcame some of rough patches and was able to put together a good 5 innings. Uh, the bullpen picked him up, as we'll see, and they scored enough runs to make it not so bad for him.
So the bottom of that inning, Kirk singles, there's a Belt strikeout. Witt hits into a fielder's choice, which has Kirk out at second. Kiermaier gets hit by a pitch, and Springer hits an RBI single, which Witt scores on. So that brings the inning to 3-2. We have three more pitching changes. Top seven, Jimmy Garcia replaces Tim Meza. Top eight, Eric Swanson replaces Jimmy Garcia. And top nine, Jordan Rano replaces Eric Swanson and gets the save for the game, which was his ninth save of the season. Winning pitcher, Tim Meza, and the losing pitcher, Trevor Gott. Manoah got a no decision in this game, so he remains 1-1. His ERA is 4.88, and his WHIP is 1.63. Moving on to game two, lineup changes. Jansen in at catcher, Biggio comes in at second base, and Belt is our DH. Pitching matchup for this one, Kevin Gausman versus Easton McGee. Gausman 2-2 with a 2.84 ERA on the season and a 1.01 WHIP. Easton McGee of note, it was actually his second major league start, and we'll learn in a moment, but it was quite a successful one for him against the Jays.
Yeah, it's sometimes these guys they come up, you know, you don't have a book on them, you don't have a lot of advanced scouting to know what he throws, so sometimes they can be a little tricky and put together a good performance.
Well, he definitely did in this game. But top two, I wanted to know. No, there's no scoring or anything on this, but top second, the Jays put the pickoff play on, and Gosman throws out a runner at second with Biggio applying the tag, which I I love the pickoff play. It doesn't
Mhm.
happen very often, but when it's orchestrated correctly, when the catcher giving the signal and then closing the glove, and Gosman swinging around and firing to second base, I love it when I see an out on that play.
Yeah, me too. I think those little intricate sort of nuances of baseball are interesting. You know, the more you watch and the more you see that kind of thing, and you appreciate it.
All right, Easton McGee actually no hits the Jays into the seventh, and in the bottom of the seventh, the no hitter is broken up by a Matt Chapman double. Top eight, we have our first pitching change for the Jays. So Gosman is replaced by Zach Pop. Gosman's pitching line for the game: 7.0 innings pitched, 6 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, and a career high of 13 strikeouts. Dustin.
Yeah, that's he's really on it this season. He's found something special, and I hope he has a lot more of these. It could be definitely a Cy Young year for him.
He definitely seems to be pitching quite well to start the season. Now, in the top of the ninth, Romano comes in to replace Zach Pop to keep the game at 0-0. And top 10, Eric Swanson comes on to replace Romano. Bottom of the 10th, we have our first scoring of the game where Bo starts at second as per the extra inning rules. There's a Vladdy single, which pushes Bo to third. Chapman gets intentionally walked to load the bases so they could possibly try to get an out at home, but that didn't happen. And there was a line drive hit to right field by Dalton Varsho, and the Jays end up winning this game in extra innings, 1-0. Our winning pitcher, Eric Swanson, so he's 1-0 on the season now with a 1.32 ERA. Our losing pitcher is Trevor Gott. That's his second loss of this series. And Kevin Gosman on the season now, 2-2, improves his ERA to 2.33, and his WHIP is 1.01. So that remains the same. Dustin, I thought this was, maybe not the greatest game, but I get another game where it was good to get a win on the board.
I think it's a little bit of a character win, with Varsho's walk off. They get to celebrate and have fun. These kinds of wins, build a lot of character and really, you know, m- mix the team together and really build a strong camaraderie.
Well, I would definitely agree, but I do think the first two games of this series will lead into what happens in the third game, in that Romano's pitched basically in both games, and the second game there's not a save situation. Swanson pitches in both games as well, and although he gets the win, he's not getting a save either. But they ran the bullpen pretty hard. I think at least their top level guys in the first couple games, and I think that leads to possibly some of the issues we saw in game number three. Now, moving into that game, lineup changes. We have Merrifield moving over to left field, Varsho in center to cover off Kiermaier, who's given the day off. Kirk is in at catcher. Espinal over at second base to cover off Witt going into left field. And Jansen is in at DH. Our pitching matchup: Chris Bassett versus Marco Gonzalez. Bassett coming in this game is 2-2 with a 5.40 ERA, and his WHIP is 1.34. This game, Dustin, had lots of scoring, so going to take a little bit to go through it here. but maybe give me some initial thoughts on how this game progressed.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of scoring, a lot different kind of game than the last two. Um, very roller coaster, as we'll find out.
So the Mariners waste no time at all in this game, and Taylor Trammell, who was just activated off the injured reserve, hits a grand slam in the top of the first, and that inning ends 4-0. And actually, just a note, Easton McGee, who was called up to make that start, he was actually sent down so that Taylor Trammell could be called off the injured reserve. So he had a he had a quick cup of coffee and was sent back down. Now, bottom of the second, the Jays not wanting to have the Mariners run away with this one. Springer with an infield single. Bo hits into a fielder's choice. Vladdy walks. There's another Matt Chapman double. And on that play, Bo and Vladdy score. And that inning ends 4-2. Following inning, in the bottom of the second, Espinal hits into a fielder's choice. Springer singles. And then Bichette absolutely crushes a 3-run home run to center field. And this was actually the longest home run of any J this year, uh, 461 feet.
Wow, impressive home run. Yeah, it looked like an absolute no doubter off the bat.
Well, Bo definitely knew it was a no doubter, and it must, I can't say I speak from experience, but it must be quite the feeling to connect with a ball like that.
Oh yeah, it's got to be one of the best feelings in sports.
Bottom of the third now, Chapman singles. There's a Merrifield line out. Kirk singles. Barshow strikes out, and Jansen hits an RBI double, which scores uh, Chapman. Espinal then steps to the plate and he hits a 2 RBI single where Jansen and Kirk score, and that inning ends 8-4. So at this point, the game's looking pretty good for the Jays, and I did actually see a bit of the game at this point, and I'm, it seemed to be quite comfortable. And you would have thought the Jays were going to cruise on to a sweep, but that was unfortunately not the case.
Yeah, especially with the way that the bullpen had been pitching over the last 5 games over this homestand. I thought, an 8-4 lead is pretty comfortable, at least, um, you know, in recent times.
Well, Bassett gets taken out of the game in the top of the sixth with Trevor Richards replacing him. Bassett's pitching line: 5.0 innings pitched, 2 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Similarly to game 1 on Friday, Dustin, this was another not so great outing, but maybe not terrible from Bassett. He has 4 runs, but that was really off one swing of the bat.
Yeah, I think he lost a little bit of control there. He walked a couple, hit a batter, and then yeah, left a meatball for a home run. But otherwise, I think through the 4 innings after that, he looked pretty good.
Well, and you kind of wonder if maybe leaving him in a little bit longer may have been a better choice, because that seems to be at the point where the tide kind of slides away. Uh, Teoscar Hernandez in that same top of the sixth hits a opposite field solo home run, and that inning ends 8-5. Top eight now. Anthony Bass comes in to replace Trevor Richards, and there is a Seattle 2-run home run, and that inning ends 8-7. So, following that 2-run home run in the top of the eighth, Jimmy Garcia replaces Anthony Bass, um, and he pitches into the top of the ninth. But unfortunately, Seattle ties the game at 8-8. So we have another extra innings game. Zach Pop replaces Jimmy Garcia in the top of the 10th, where there is another Seattle 2-run home run. This one by Cal Raleigh, and that was actually his second of the game. So Seattle is up 10-8, going to that bottom of the 10th. The Jays come to the lineup and actually have the heart of their order up, but unfortunately do not score, and the inning and game ends 10-8. The winning pitcher for the Mariners is Paul Sewald, and the losing pitcher Zach Pop. So Zach Zach was actually on the end of both ends of decisions in this series. So he was the losing pitcher in this one, and he now has a 4.38 ERA, and he is 1-1. Bassett remains 2-2, and improves his ERA still to 5.18, and his WHIP is 1.24. So as I kind of touched on earlier, not a terrible outing from him. Obviously, made some mistakes early on, but unfortunately wasn't good enough to get the decision.
Unfortunately, I'm Cal Raleigh is a Blue Jays killer, man. I think he had a home run early in the series as well, and I think he had a big home run in the wild card game last year. So I'm not going to be happy to see him again.
So the Jays finish this series and homestand as well as the month of April. They are 18-10 and third in the AL East. Dustin, I believe you texted me the other day, basically saying that the Jays are off to possibly their best start ever, and yet are only in third place.
Yeah, definitely is the best start they've ever had. I looked it up, at least to this point. And yeah, it's amazing that they're not leading. Any other division in the league, they would be uh, the clear leader. Um, I guess you can't help that Tampa Bay is on a historic start to their season as well, but it's tough.
Well, the AL East is what it is. It's tough every year, but the one thing of note is that every team in the AL East is over 500. So we are going to be facing another AL East opponent coming up on the road, but there isn't a single team in the AL East right now that is below 500, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox are at 500, or if they won today, then they're just above. Yeah, it's insane.
All right, Dustin, let's talk about our player of the series. What do you think?
I mean, Matt Chapman had the best offensive series. Kirky had a good one there too, but I think I'm going to give it to Matt Chapman.
Yeah, my player of the series is Chapman as well. His stats for this particular series: 1 run, 6 hits, 3 RBIs, and 2 walks, and his average is currently 384. Now, I did want to note a few kind of where he sits in terms of the overall league, because we do see Matt Chapman obviously doing quite well to start this year. It's a contract year, but I do like highlighting where he sits in terms of other players in the league and really how good he actually is doing. So right now he leads the major leagues with an OPS of 1.152. He is second in the big leagues with his average of 384. He's tied for third in hits with Bo and two other players when he has 38. He leads the major leagues in doubles, which we that seems to be not much of a secret because they seem to mention that every broadcast. He's second in the league in on base percentage at 465, and he actually leads the league in slugging with his slugging percentage of 687. So if we can if this is going to continue, I think it's going to bode well for later in the year as well as the playoffs.
He's definitely making a bid for a big contract in the off season. But let's enjoy it while we got it, because I don't think we're going to see him in a Blue Jays uniform next year. That's for sure.
I don't think so either. I think he's going to get a fat contract and be off somewhere else. So the Jays now head out on the road for a 4 game series versus the Boston Red Sox. at Fenway. The Red Sox are 15 and 14 and tied with the Yanks for the last place in the AL East. Big players for the Red Sox. The one, I guess, main guy that you have to keep an eye on is Rafael Devers at third base. Dustin, maybe give me some thoughts on the Red Sox and a prediction of how the series is going to go.
This is going to be a tricky one. I mean, just to circle back to the discussion we were having about the bullpen and about the tough you know uh, run that they've had in terms of being used and maybe that hurting them a little bit in this last game here today. We might see something similar. There's no off day. We got 4 games in Fenway. It's going to be rough for sure, as it always is on the road. And um, I mean, one good thing is, the Red Sox aren't, putting the best product on the field. I think Chris Sale pitched today, so we won't see him in any of the 4 games. So those are positives. I think, I mean, you kind of got to try and take 3 out of 4 here. A split would be, acceptable, but with the Pirates coming up right after, they've got a similar season going as Tampa does. They're going to be a tough game, team to play. I think just in May in general is going to be a really make it or break it month for the Blue Jays. There's a lot of games, a big stretch coming in the middle of the month where there's no off days. You play the Yankees and the Orioles and Tampa. Uh, it's this is a really important month, and I think kicking it off with a good solid 3 out of 4 against the Red Sox would make it, you know, get started on a good foot.
Well, I definitely think that with the Red Sox series looming, probably that's why Schneider used his bullpen as he did in that
Yeah.
last game. Basically, Swanson and Romano were just, they were apparently they weren't an option. They were just not going to be pitching that particular day. And I guess Schneider sees that he's going to need both those arms going into um, going into this series with the Red Sox.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly it. He's going to want to have them there. The Red Sox, although they're like you said, a 500 team right now, you don't want to count them out, and you don't want to, you know, take them for granted, especially in Fenway.
Definitely. Dustin, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Al.